The EPA is out of control. Welcome back to our special report, Alaska Under Siege. It's one thing for the EPA to shut down development and kill jobs on federal land in Alaska, but in an unprecedented move and what some would call illegal, the EPA is now targeting state land. In what most consider a preemptive strike to shut down the Pebble mine before Pebble Partnership even unveils its plan, the EPA is considering using the Clean Water Act to prohibit mining in a wide swath of state land in western Alaska. The unprecedented and what Alaska's Attorney General called illegal move could cripple western Alaska's economy.
They're trying to enforce this 404 Clean Water Act, 404C Clean Water Act, which basically would take over the native lands in that area, which the government has given to the native corporations in that area for business, for profit. And the government is trying to seize land. It's land takeover.
Look, I just think the example on the Bristol Bay watershed is an area where it's kind of breathtaking, right? We've never done it before. They're looking to close off possibly a swath of the state's state land the size of New Jersey. And what's the legal basis? When that land was actually selected by the state of Alaska for resource development?
What EPA is doing with the Pebble project is really almost unprecedented in its size and its scope and its timing. The fact that they are going in to do a review of a watershed area that I think has been described as the size of the state of West Virginia, to do a watershed assessment before there has been any clearly defined project, before there has been an application for permits made to the state of Alaska. Remember that this is state land that we're talking about here.
That they would come in when they had no right to come in to expend their powers on a project that hasn't even really been put on paper yet. I mean, there's a lot of research that Pebble has been doing on the mine and what they're going to do, and then to have the EPA come in and say, oh, we're going to come in and really make sure, this is good on state lands, to no less. I mean, this isn't something that they should be brought in until the project's been defined.
I get worked up talking about it. God. EPA. Sorry. My blood is starting to go to my face. Sorry.
Again, Pebble Partnership, they got to meet a super high standard from the state and the feds. But even people who oppose that mine should be very, very concerned when the EPA thinks it has the authority to just say, before a permit is even applied for, we're going to lock up this whole part of state land.
But what happens when the EPA comes in before that process even starts is they set standards that are not part of legal standards. I mean, they create new standards, new expectations before the permitting process can even be had. So what that means is that any regulatory agency could start doing that and start setting those expectations and standards ahead of an actual permit application. That diminishes our economic opportunity as a state and diminishes freedom of the individuals of our state.
I have raised the concerns that this watershed assessment could be used to not only preemptively pull the plug on Pebble, but could also be used to deny development of any kind. Say the people in the region wanted to put in a new airstrip. Say they wanted to build a new school. Regardless of what the project is, this assessment is so broad in its scope that it could be used to effectively deny any development within this area. And again, an area that is state land.
Before they even apply, have the EPA take a look, they've never done this before, and just say, this entire swath of Alaska, no-go for mineral development. A lot of people forget, when we were doing state selection from the federal government, one of the big reasons we chose that area was exactly for mineral development.
I welcome the federal government in situations like that. We have a lot to learn from the lower 48.
But the federal government, the EPA, has basically said they don't know what Pebble's plan is yet, so they're going to come up with their own, and then they're going to determine whether the plan that they come up with, which they hope is similar to Pebble's, is going to hurt the fisheries. That just seems insane to me, and it's on state land.
It is on state land, but, you know, we are part of the United States, and I think that, you know, because of that, I see a very important role for the U.S. To play a role.
But shouldn't the EPA wait until Pebble releases its plan?
You know, I think it's never too early to start looking at science, start asking the important questions.
Before the plan's released?
Hey, the rock is in the ground. I mean, we know what type of rock is there. We know the density of the ore in that region. We know that they're likely looking at an open pit mine. Actually, one of their initial plans, I know it's not the final plan.
What's the rush? Why not wait to see what they're going to do?
Hey, I'm all for more information and for discussion.
Well,
and
it's not
science.
about information. It's about process. It's about day in court. It's about here's what we're going to do. What say you? But this idea, we don't care what you're going to do. We're going to make a judgment before you even determine what you're going to do. That's insane.
Yeah, you know, I think the fisheries of Bristol Bay warrant that sort of conversation, and getting that conversation started earlier.
Conversation. It's we're going to make a ruling before we know what you're going to do.
So would you prefer that the permitting process go through and then this process begin? I mean, if that were to occur, it might slow down the prospect should the EPA not see an issue.
So what do you think, this is going to speed up the process, making a judgment before we know what Pebble Mine's going to do?
I think it's great that the permitting processes are going in parallel, and I think that there's...
But it's not parallel. We don't even know the plan yet.
That is one common talking point against the EPA.
Is it inaccurate?
We know the ore deposit. We know the likelihood of an open pit mine. We know the salmon runs that go to their region.
We don't know the plan. Shouldn't we wait for the plan?
I think the plan's going to be a critical component. And I mean, if the EPA...
critical component? How do you evaluate a plan without a plan?
I just want our communities to survive. We already have a struggle as it is. We already have hardship. And for EPA to come in, it makes it even more difficult for us to be fighting our own government and not seeing, they don't see the opportunities we see for the young people to have jobs and to have hope like we do now. We see Pebble as an opportunity, and they should be given that the opportunity to move forward to see if it can be done safely.
You don't have to be a card-carrying member of Greenpeace to appreciate Alaska's rare beauty. Alaska's mostly untouched landscape is one of the reasons people are drawn to the last frontier. But most Alaskans understand there's more to the state than her incredible scenery.
So look, I think timber is one of these stories. It's unbelievably tragic in my view. Right, timber trade and exports right now from different parts of America, whether North Carolina, Washington, even California, I was reading in the paper, it's booming, right, into Asian economies. We essentially don't have a timber industry for all intents and purposes now.
What happened to the once booming industry in Alaska? It's not hard to understand. Big Environment found a very strong ally in shutting down timber, the federal government.
We're down to very few people. We're having our annual meeting of the Alaska Forest Association here in Anchorage in about 3 weeks. And we used to have hundreds attend. Now we all fit around a table about like this. It's pretty sad. And the thing that's really sad about the timber industry is that we're a renewable resource, that you can cut a tree and you plant another one, and in another 60, 70, 80 years you can cut it again.
At its peak, the timber industry created directly or indirectly 20,000 jobs. It was the #1 industry in southeast Alaska. But thanks to Big Environment, activists, judges, and the federal government, those 20,000 jobs are gone. Most working in timber would have told you 20 years ago they could never have dreamed their entire industry disappearing. It's a cautionary tale for the rest of the state. Alaska will reach her destiny, and she will fulfill her purpose by supplying desperately needed resources to the globe. But it's important to understand there is a battle ahead. Much like it took grit, determination, and courage to win statehood, it will take the same to win our battle with federal overreach. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Dan Fagan.